Doesn't matter what the press says. Doesn't matter what the politicians or the mob say. Doesn't matter if the whole country decides that something wrong is something right. This nation was founded on one principle above all else: the requirement that we stand up for what we believe, no matter the odds or the consequences. When the mob and the press and the whole world tell you to move, your job is to plant yourself like a tree next to the river of truth and tell the whole world, no, you move. Hello, everybody. This is Talkative Carl back again for another comic book spoiler review. And today we'll be covering Steve Rogers' version of Captain America, uh, more specifically the 2011 run of Captain America American Dreamers. It's actually like at least a few arcs within this 19 uh, issue run by Ed Brubaker, art by Steve McNiven. And check out my previous Captain America comic book review covering Isaiah Bradley, the first black Captain America, Captain America Truth, Red, White, and Black, up on the channel, youtube.com/talkativecarl. I'm trying to get the jump on some Captain America stuff for the month of July, but I also want to squeeze in a couple of Punisher stuff, uh, because I didn't feel like waiting till Memorial Day, because Memorial Day and the July 4th is like appropriate time to really put out like some Captain America, Punisher type of comics. But I feel this is the perfect time to squeeze in some Punisher stuff too, because I've been sitting on that for a hot minute. But it's gonna be one Punisher comic and one Punisher movie. I'm also gonna be covering some Captain America movies as well. But anywho, welcome. So yeah, Steve Rogers is one hell of a guy, especially from a guy from the '40s who just like he's just a stand-up person, pretty much like ahead of his time so far as like him and Bucky's pretty much like probably one of those few rare people that were ahead of their time so far as progressiveness and forward thinkiness. And during that time period it was like a lot of racist, misogynistic crap going on, bigoted, fair amount of people. It was that time. It wasn't as bad as like maybe like back in like the 1800s, or even like the 1900s or 1910s or 20s. But it's just like slowly, very slowly but surely, there was like at least a subsect of white people, especially up north, who didn't treat like people that's different than them as subhuman, but it wasn't like I'm pretty sure they had the mindset of separate but equal kind of mindset still. But it took quite a bit of time. I say like fairly in like the mid to late 70s you'll see like a tonal shift, so far as like how white people or just white straight cis people interacted with people that's different than them, kind of thing. But the point is like Steve Rogers is just like one of those few rare gems of that era. So yeah, we start off with like Cap visiting. I think like they took a lot of stuff from Winter Soldier and Civil War, took some elements from this because he's at the funeral of Peggy Carter. In this point in time, well, I think this is like this has been on and off with so far as like Cap's relationships, because apparently in this run is because I did not know this. If you're familiar with like the female, at least former female villain, Diamondback, uh, uh, she and Steve used to date. That fell through, but you can still see she still has some harboring some feelings for him in this run. But currently, at least in current comics, it's hinted that I think Sharon and Steve are a thing. But she came, I think, in the past few years, she's been like solidified. Well, I think now I'm thinking about maybe it was, Captain America Civil War and like Winter Soldier. They kind of like really pushed Sharon in very hard in the comics and solidified her as like the obvious love interest for Steve Rogers. Even though, even in the movies and in the comics, Steve and Peggy had a thing, but since the whole situation with him being frozen in ice and then, you know, fast forward him into the future, now he's like, hooking up with her niece. And it's kind of like the whole situation with like Luke Skywalker and like Leia. It's like, it's weird and awkward, but I think you kind of one of those things you guess gloss over. And I just like a side note, I was looking at this podcast a few days ago, and like it was a comedian who pointed out that we're so like open with like this day and age. A lot of people are a little bit more open than they used to be so far as like sexuality and what things that we like not allow but like tolerate and like accept as social norms, like poly I can't never say this right, polyamory, where it's like people are in thruples and like just not like subject themselves to like traditions, like patriarchal kind of traditions or whatever. And it's just that maybe in the future he think some point 20, 30, 40 years from now, maybe people will be a little more comfortable with like maybe not direct cousins, but like second, third cousins removed from each other. Be a little more accepted for them, like just to hook up, and it's not like a huge thing. Maybe, I'm not sure. I still think it's kind of gross, but it's just that having like a relationship with Steve and Sharon is probably not gonna be like an eye roll or anything like that. But they're at Paris at Peggy's funeral, and of course like Steve's like having just thinking about like him being like a man at a time. People, it's probably typical in most Captain America stories where he's just feeling a little bit out of place, thinking of himself as like kind of like a relic of the past, where it's like it's kind of like the same thing with Superman. Like his values are like they always have that mindset every once in a while where it's like, are my values out of date? Considering that times have changed, people gone a little more cynical. People are against each other, at each other's throats. Like nobody's happy in this country, and it's like all things I fought for, that meant something back then. That because like during World War II, it's like almost everybody was together, with this one singular enemy that threatened to take over the world essentially. Once we got all past that, from the Cold War moving on, it's like people are at odds with each other, like like a racism and bigotry, some misogynistic stuff. And it's like nobody was like focused on it because a single enemy was like a driving force that kept everybody, at least just like after the whole 9/11 situation, everybody was in wholeheartedly in an agreement on what was wrong, and do their part to fight that fight. But without that, it's like now we need something to because I like to say, like, not that like the '90s didn't have any issues, but it's like it didn't feel like, I mean, it was because I was a little kid, but it didn't feel like, even in like, well, before 9/11, and then it took at least a handful of years after 9/11 where it felt like you know people wasn't sniping each other. I think it was prior to like social media. It didn't feel like everybody was like at each other's throats of and then tearing each other down for every little thing that they said. But yeah, Cap is just like with like Dum Dum Dugan, Sharon, and uh Nick Fury, white Nick Fury this time. Not This is pre-black Nick Fury, but they just the last a few of their like remaining unit, aside from Sharon, but it's just by relations. It's just the last few remaining of the like the original crew kind of situation, and like aside from Nick and Cap, like Dum Dum seems like the only one who's, well, it's hard to say. They kind of like really like Dum Dum Dugan is kind of like one of those rare individuals that seems like, even though he should be like aged, because yeah, he was fairly young, even though he still looked like the same guy, like looked like he's like stuck in his perpetual same age with like the bowler hat and thick curly mustache, and did not seem like he aged at all. It looked like he stayed the exact same, kind of like uh kind of like Tommy Lee Jones, where it's always seemed like he's always old, and he's stuck there. That's how Dum Dum Dugan is always to me, because no matter what comic, like I seen him in like a Miss Marvel comic, Kamala Khan stuff, like a few years back, and it's like, man, you do not look like you should be Nick Fury's age, white Nick Fury's age by this point. At least showing some gray hair on the side, but it kind of like is one of those few things. It's like, well, they really play fast and loose with his age. But along the after leaving the funeral, they avoid getting like a sniper is trying to assassinate Dum Dum Dugan, but thanks to Cap's quick reflexes, avoid Dum Dum getting like shot. Come to find out that it was somebody that from Cap's past, or at least all of their past, except for Sharon, that Cap recognized and did not realize he was alive. This former soldier that was fighting on their side, named Bravo, who was very skilled in his own right, but it's not like they treat it like he has like the super soldier serum too, the way he's like going up against like Cap, the way he is. But Cap's in like disbelief of like that guy should not be around, because he's supposed to be like, at least to their knowledge, trapped in like a different dimension. Why, you ask? Well, Cap, and Nick go over eventually, because Sharon doesn't know what the heck's going on, and like everybody's keeping like cliche, using cliche like pronoun and certain words, like man, it's like I shouldn't have done that back then. Man, it's like if I make different choices back then, and she just like, okay, everybody just tell me what the hell is going on. Who is that guy? What's going on? And you flash back a bit to when Nick Fury was a sergeant at this point in time, back in the 40s. And during they in Paris 1944, and uh, they were setting up a mission to get behind enemy lines because it's an imperial fortress, and they you know and Nick brings in this was he suspects to be like an at least the first mutant he ever encountered because he's suspected to be some kind of mutant, at least one that he first encountered. But then again, there is like Wolverine. There's been like certain comics where Wolverine and Nick Fury and Captain America team out to fight Nazis back in 1944, 42 sometimes. So technically, Wolverine should have been like the first mutant they ever encountered. But this guy named something Jupiter, uh, Jimmy Jupiter, uh, aka Jimmy Jakovics. Might be like one of those Jewish allies that they have, uh, who had the ability to walk in this dream, walk in and out of this like alternate dimension or this dream world, and he can also like bring things out of the dream world. Like, they found him because like one time in school he brought to school this two-headed cat, obviously from this dream world, where pretty much he's like king of. He can do whatever he wants in it. That's his like mutant abilities, kind of like Magic being able to go into her little magic dimension, and like and she's like queen of that kind of world where she can do almost anything. Uh, uh, so they plan on, since like the enemy has like an impenetrable fortress, they need to get inside. So they use Jupiter to tap in. They open up a portal by tapping into the dreams of the enemy, so they can just open up a portal and come out on the other side. So while they forming this plan, at that time, I guess Peggy and Bravo used to be a thing, but I guess the relationship kind of fell apart, and then she started hooking up with Steve, and you can see like like he was obviously like jealous. It was like, oh, man, I'm not like super soldier enough for you or something. So, they, back in present day, they find Jupiter in uh old person's facility home, where he used to be in a coma, but he woke up, but he's still kind of tonic, not exactly able to communicate. At this point in time, Shield is kind of defunct. Probably in like around the time when like the movies where like Shield was being like infiltrated by Hydra and all the other stuff. So like Shield completely disbanded, because typically Nix was supposed to be notified for any changes upon Jupiter's condition, because Jupiter was like a close friend to the team, and it was like tragic to what had happened, because like he got jumped in by somebody in their ranks who was secretly Hydra, and like knocked hit him over the head with an object and it put him in a coma. While like Bravo and a few members of their soldiers was like trying to do like infiltration mission into this dream world over to the other side. But at the same time, while they dealing with like a couple of Hydra agents who wound up in there, they all get trapped, because since Jupiter's mind is completely like unconscious, that means he cannot open it back up. Nobody can. So for all intents and purposes, they were trapped, and it took years before they got out. Which leads to Bravo, working with this new subsect of Hydra agents, working with Queen Hydra, who somehow they got married at some point. and this new Hydra goons, got like a little more modified uh, Hydra, suits to differentiate between like the old classic Hydra suits. Uh, they, they get ambushed by these goons, and they end up kidnapping Jupiter. And also like of course Baron Zemo is working along with these two, uh, Bravo and Queen Hydra. Uh, 1 second here. So yeah, like I said, like the Dream World is just like it's very wacky. It's very kind of cartooniest. But more so, it's probably because of Jupiter's. At that time when he was a young kid, his mindset was a little bit more, well. He can do whatever he wants, so it's like a little bit more like cartoony in a way. But I guess if he was allowed to like grow up into maturity and as an adult, the dreamlike state will kind of like mature along with him, but he can still fundamentally do whatever he wants depending on like his mental state. But all that completely shut off once like his mind completely got, well, he got knocked unconscious for a brief period. That resulted in like brain damage, obviously. So that's why he's like catatonic. Uh, so after failing to stop Queen Hydra, who like escaped through like a teleporter, which uh, it never was clear how like Bravo got out of that dream world because for all intents and purposes it was like closed off and only uh uh Jupiter was able to open and close it on his own. Maybe Hydra found some kind of way to like briefly, get it open, or you know, there was like a tear and like Jupiter ended up, Bravo ended up getting out. One of the two things. But now that they have Jupiter in their control, now they're able to like fundamentally go after anybody they want to, utilizing uh, Jupiter to shape people's mindsets. Pretty much like uh, almost Inception, to where they can like really like uh, make the perfect world, because that's what Bravo wanted. It's like he thinks like he has a grudge against Cap because he feels like I was gone for all this time, and you were supposed to be like the embodiment of uh how like okay, once we win this world war, you can like shape it into like where it needs to be a better one. But to his eyes, he feels like Cap failed, so he feels like, okay, I'm going to, because it's not even that. It feels like he's just jealous of Cap, to be honest with you, because you know you see that moment with like Peggy, and like I guess that on top of things doesn't seem like they changed all that much, because people are still at odds with each other, and people in Congress, like you know and the media are bought and paid for, and like for to just bigger at each other, and just not, it's like plant false narratives and all this other crap that is really kind of like, if you read along in this run, you can see a lot of parallels with what's going on currently in today's day and age. But this is made in 2011. I imagine there was always still this kind of thing. There's always, history tends to repeat itself. Like nothing seems to have really, it doesn't appear nothing has changed, but it's like it changed little by little. But we always seem to, backpedal, or like, uh, was a slide back. What's you know what I mean? Backslide. And they testing like because they had to, you know, they had to put this little mechanism, this like little proto mechanism around Jupiter's head to like force his power in order to be able to like manipulate people's dreams. So you see like Bravo infiltrating Sharon's mind, and he's like, you know, because she doesn't know who this guy is really, but in the dream world, she's like, when you're in a dream, you don't realize you're in a dream, or you just like go with the flow kind of situation, because she's like just seeing this mysterious dude and kissing, and she realizing what the heck's going on. Then he realizes, oh, well, it's pleasant to meet you anyway, and then he disappears. But it's just like a test run today. That's when like she wakes up thinking it's like some kind of just a nightmare or something. That's when some gigantic cat robot comes crashing in as Cap is putting on his uniform, and it's some kind of like Cap android thing. And you see, like, you want to know, like, what this thing is. Apparently, it's a Nazi scientist who somehow, at some point, transferred his mind inside this cat robot to fight Captain America. And Cap is like, at some point along the panels, he mentions about how, like, okay, wow, these guys are lunatics. And it's like, sometimes when you, they hate what I stand for, but they, but they don't have no problem, like, put on that kind of guise regardless. Something to that effect. They're always like, they don't like me, but they like dressing like me sometimes. Or put on like some kind of facade of me. And while Cap was done with that, Sharon is going toe to toe with Zemo. And she's actually holding her own against Zemo. And there's a funny little moment when she's trying to toss Cap his shield. And it's like, that's when you see, like, in Falcon and Winter Soldier, when, like, Falcon's practicing with the shield in order to, get good at, like, ricochets and catching it when it flies right back. And it's like, it's not as easy as apparently looks, because she's trying to throw it at him, it bounces off of stuff and lands on the side of the building. She's like, crap. It's just like, it's annoyingly like, because Cap got that super soldier brain, so he can think, pretty quickly, be able to like, be able to observe and like take in information a lot better than most average people. So he can be able to calculate where the shield would, bounce off to next, and be able to catch it right back in his hand, so for an average person like, Falcon, he had to practice. I mean, not that Cap doesn't practice with his, but Falcon probably had to work twice as hard in order to be able to do the exact same thing. Now, Cap was taking down this mechanical beast while Zemo was getting away. They while they run a test on this thing, and some kind of ambulance nearby, where Queen Hydra and Bravo is once again testing out this. They setting up this trap for Cap, to where like they're trying to get it was the whole thing was a distraction, trying to get Cap to bring this thing in so they can run tests on it. But this machine, seemingly out of commission, wakes back up, tackles Cap outside the building, and all the while at the exact same time they open up the dream portal so they can like fall right in so they can have Cap where they want him. And Bravo is going under so he can go toe to toe with Cap. Where it's like, because in a fair fight, Cap would easily like lay this guy out. But in his dream world, this guy has an advantage. He's pretty much like Freddy Krueger in this situation where he's just like, I've been here so long. I learned eventually how to manipulate things, so I can pretty much like you can do whatever I want in this world. Like he can make up cities and like you know get ahead of Cap and like just fling Cap around like a rag doll pretty much. Uh, while like Cap is in the meantime discombobulated, and he has a uh, killing. I'm not sure if like you die in this dream, you die for real kind of situation. Maybe it's like uh, Inception, Freddy Krueger rules, uh, where like or like Matrix kind of thing, where it's like your brain thinks it's real, so it's going to operate as real life, situation. So, in his dream world, the mind of this, Nazi scientist that was in this robot, he got his actual body back and everything like that. And as soon as like, him and Cap get up, he gets shot in the face by Bravo. And he's just like, uh, he's like, sorry, Nazis don't get second chances in my world. And it's like, you working with a Hydra, subsect or not, they have some degree of freaking Nazi isms drilled in their head in some shape or form. It's just like, I don't know. Maybe not all of them are Nazis, especially if it's like modern Hydra, but that kind of stuff is like, is obviously very Nazi-esque kind of stuff. Not that dissimilar to like stormtroopers or the First Order. It's like you got very Nazi-like qualities, and you get to see this moment where it's like he's like uh Cap's trying to throw his shield. Like you're in a dream world, you're trying to throw his shield, and of course you get those classic moves where like Bravo just catches, just like Winter Soldier, he catches the shield right in midair. It's like I was like, I'm King here. Your super soldier crap doesn't mean nothing. So now like Cap is just like flummox at this point. He's thanks to Bravo, he's going, he's messing with his mind. You know, seeing like a hopeful future where like people are so in sync with each other and like nobody's suffering and all the stuff that Cap is trying for everybody to become and do. uh it comes all crashing down where like everybody's suffering and like he's like a flag burning and it's like all Cap's worst nightmares coming true. And like Bravo's trying to put on like that's exactly how I feel when I came out of this dream world and looking at the world that you uh, uh didn't fix, because it's not what you always like promised. So now like people back home is trying to work hard into like bringing Cap out of this dream escape. Go to Falcon, Sharon, Nick, find uh, Queen Hydra's little secret base where they keeping Jupiter, hooked up to these machines to, allow people to, traverse into these dream worlds. Uh, Running parallel, Bravo is explaining like in the situation, like as soon as we got in here, my team is like, you know, getting attacked by unseen monstrosities and stuff like that. I guess it was like a horror show half the time. And eventually, whoever was left of Bravo's team, along with whoever's left of the Hydra's team, they decided eventually to band together in order to like help get themselves out of this. So that's where like Bravo started to work with Queen Hydra and work to bring down Captain America. Uh, Sharon, of course, like burst in first, and she walks in as Queen Hydra is just have a gun pointed at like a catatonic uh uh Jupiter, and she has no qualms of taking him out, leaving Bravo stranded again. Yeah, if it means also stranding Cap there as well, because ends justified the means with like Hydra. Of course, she actually doesn't win. Like Sharon's trying to make a move. Uh, of course, the dream world is starting to crumble down, and uh, Bravo shoots Cap with this kind of like ray gun that seemingly like reduced him to back to his pre super soldier serum form, where it's like he is like that part stunned me. It's like, wow. At first I thought this was like oh, this is like a it's a dream. He can do whatever he wants. So he's shooting, but no, these are actual weapons he brought in with him, just like Cap shield. He's like whoever you bring in with you is actually like physical and real. But Cap is like doesn't have ain't having none of that. He like still fights back regardless. Like the serum ain't what makes him Captain America. Is what's inside his heart is what made him Captain America. And so he still fight on regardless. And that's what like we love about Captain America. That's Steve Rogers. Like he has so much heart, and that's why people look up to him. It's not just what he can do physically; it's what he stands for. And a distraught Sharon's like pleading with the dying Jupiter to like, because he's conscious, at least aware enough where she's begging him to like, Cap needs your help. Be Cap's hero, please. We need him, and just do this one last thing, please, for Cap. And like, with the last bit of consciousness, Jupiter managed to open up the portal to have Cap and Bravo come pouring out. Cap back to his physical form, peak physical form, and they take down Bravo, but Queen Hydra managed to make an escape. But this isn't the end. This is like just like an arc here. So now like Queen Hydra is not done with Cap yet. She has other bigger plans to bring down Cap and the U.S. all as a whole. Now Cap is having like nightmares, and this is like start of this new arc. Uh, Powerless, and Cap's having nightmares. Him losing his super soldier serum powers, and he mentions how it's not the first time where he's experienced where it's like he got power loss, but now he's like dreaming it, and he's assuming it's gonna happen. He's you get to see like not just Falcon but like Iron Man and Hawkeye is rolling into this arc where they're trying to run tests and see what's going on. Even see like cameos with like Hank McCoy running tests to see if everything is, because as far as they are able to glean from their many tests, he's all right. He's same as always. But Cap just not 100% sure, where he feels like he's like getting his he's having nightmares him getting his ass kicked because his powers are leaving him. Uh, so Hawkeye and him go out to, while they Tony and Hank is doing like finishing up some tests. Hawkeye suggests like, okay, we should just go out, clear your head by taking down some just common criminals in the meantime. And they go, they end up, they happen upon, while they taking out some robbers, they happen upon this massive riot going on, not understanding like what sparked this, but they trying to keep everybody calm and separated and keep it from like bellowing into a bigger problem. And Cap notices like one of them, their eyes are like kind of dilated in a way where he's seen these kind of things before, and they found out that all these people come from this. For the bulk of these people came from this one singular bar. So they go to this bar and they find this mad bomb, a more advanced mad bomb, where Cap seen this before, where it was used to nearly start like a race war, back in the day. But this one's a little bit more advanced. And you think it was a surfing society, but it's not. But they get jumped by don't call, I like to say the Surfing Society, where you got like Eo, Viper, and somebody else, Cobra, I think. And Cap actually starting to lose his abilities, and he completely gets jumped on by these goons. So now shit is really hitting the fan. Like, oh god, it's like Cap is getting jumped on by these freaking losers that he can easily handle. Just like in his sleep half the time. They're not exactly like Deadpool or Wolverine level of like skill. So while in prison, like Bravo starts like this massive prison fight in order to orchestrate him getting like put in solitary confinement, so Mad Hydra can like set up a prison break for him. Of course, like the transformation was temporary. He reverted eventually back into his peak physical condition, but they got to figure out like, okay, what's going on, because there's something bigger in play here. And the only way to like figure out what's going on is find one of these three goons who set this up, because obviously he was using this some kind of like a distraction to because they was being like, they're pawns essentially. So the only ones, the Serpent Society, or these Serpent goons, they got to know something, so they're their only lead. But they have to leave it to Clint and Falcon to go on the streets to figure out where they are, because Cap is too much not a liability, but like they don't want to put him in danger if something happens and his powers drop again and he might end up dying. So he has to hang back for a while, even though he hates being put on the sidelines. And it's kind of funny, like I remember so many times where like other heroes got to get sidelined and Cap's one has to tell him that while he's getting on the field. And it's like, wow, it's like you wouldn't like being sidelined either, but it's like I guess he's a little bit more understanding about it. But And unlike most other stories where characters who feel like they're getting sidelined don't stay, and they end up leaving and put putting like endangering the mission altogether because they had to get out on that field. Cap doesn't do that, thankfully. He trusts Falcon and Hawkeye to do their jobs, but Falcon ended up having to pawn another riot, uh, and he ended up getting hit by a rock, and he getting dazed a bit, and then getting his ass uh, jumped on. One of like the writers is like a black guy because this is like from the Mad Bomb, mind you, but it's kind of like the way it was described. It's like attuned to some kind of frequency where it's kind of like if you ever watched the movie, not movie, but TV show Smallville, when Clark get anywhere near or touches uh, red kryptonite, it brings out his like deep inhibitions, things that he you know keeps in check. All his little like deep-seated insecurities and ill feelings and stuff like that. That's like he normally manages. And the Mad Bob kind of brings that kind of feeling out with everybody. Uh, and one of these writers is like a black guy sitting there calling like Falcon and Uncle Tom. Uh, so Falcon flies off. No one's like getting like completely out of control. They end up finding where like this because the Servant Society is sitting there trying to rob a bank while the Mad Bomb is driving everybody like wild over this side of the street. And it's like, okay, nobody's paying attention to us, so let's make some quick cash uh while threatening everybody with like another bomb. But Sharon and Cap find them and proceed to handle business. Of course, they took him down, eventually, and luckily, Cap's powers didn't drop in the meantime. So they managed to capture Viper, I think, and Cap thinking like, okay, I'm going to have to talk to these people. Maybe I can reach them. It usually works because they, above all else, they'll listen to me. So he's trying to like calm everybody down, but his powers start to drop again, and everybody thinking like, "Oh, he's a fake," and they starting to proceed to like jump on Captain America, and Cap's trying to, fight him off. Falcon comes in and rescues him, and this is like leaving like Cap like completely like distraught, like I couldn't do anything. So Sharon starts to like interrogate uh, Viper, uh, and you come to find out that they were being used too. Uh, and yeah, he mentions like he's supposed to be a distraction. And so in that confusion, while Cap and his team were handling the riots and like the Serpent Society, Hydra and Queen Hydra break out Bravo. Um, then Sharon goes on her own little mission, figuring like, okay, uh, this whole entire like bomb was like set up by one particular guy, this Machine Smith villain. Never heard of Machine Smith before. Probably another Captain America rogue. You gotta really like do like some serious research to find like Cap- Captain America's significant rogues gallery, because it's not as like well known as like Spider-Man or Batman's rogues gallery, because uh, because usually like Baron Zemo, uh, Red Skull, Hydra in general, Crossbones. Is only realized Crossbones was a Captain America bad guy. Like a year or two after uh, uh, Captain America Civil War. And some people might already know that from like deep cut, Captain America fans. But I think maybe Machine Smith might be another one. But it's like, yeah, you really gotta like do some deep research to find like a significant amount of rogues. Maybe Bravo is obviously like a Captain America rogue at this point. So Sharon, dealing with Machine Smith, uh, tricks him into going to this particular robot in his fortress where he's supposed to have been like kept in some kind of like stasis, because he's kind of like Brainiac in a way, where he's like he's in like, or Ultron is into this like one particular uh he's like Data, or he probably used to be human, but he transfer his mind to like Data. So he's infiltrating this like robot, but it's all a ploy for Sharon to trap him there, because now whoever is harming Steve is now putting him in danger. Well, he doesn't know that. No, that's not what she trapped him in, because that's not what she divulged to him. For he knew, she set this place to blow along with her and him. If she is like mutual destruction, she wants information on, of how to fix Steve. So, wanting to leave and not be destroyed, he figures, okay, I'm trapped here, and I'm gonna, die essentially, you know. So, okay, I'll give you this information so that way we both leave fine. So this puts like Steve in the move, because like it was like only like a year prior where they had to deal with Machine Smith, and they finally got him captured into this little box thing, so he can't get out. But it's kind of like it's kind of one of those situations where it's like lesser two evils, where it's like, okay, I'm gonna have to let this guy out because he's the only one that can, who set this up, or at least has some inkling about it, to where they can, give us, he can give us a helping hand in order to be able to fix Steve. And it comes to find out, like, yeah, uh, 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 that ray gun that Bravo shot Steve with, turns out it wasn't supposed to be like, kill him. It's supposed to like slowly, but surely, you know, erase his powers, or at least causing his powers to be in flux, to where it's like, it's these little nano machines. It was not normal nanobots. It's like particular nanobots that, you know, cloak themselves when trying to be scanned, like typically, like scientists usually do when they scan for like any kind of nano machines and whatnot. This one cloaks himself, so that they won't be detected and neutralized. So they hide within like, the camera flies themselves within like the bloodstream. Uh, so that's how Tony will be able to like pinpoint it and fix it. All the while, Falcon is interrogating Viper, who, in exchange for witness protection, which leads into like the next arc, he's willing to give up, some information. So he dropped that dime on that just to get in some witness protection program because he's really afraid of these guys. That supplied him with these mad bomb things. And while Falcon is on the trail on this, trying to, see what Viper gave up is true. He, does some recon. He gets captured by Bravo, and uh, he throws one of the mad bombs at Falcon, which caused him to go into like a complete rage freak out himself. And it's like more and more. I think it was around this time when like Falcon in the MCU starting to become a little bit more popular. Whereas now it's like certain moments where it's like in the comics where they distinctly not they kind of not trying to. It's kind of like make they trying to make like because clearly he looks like Anthony Mackie in some shots in this comic, but they don't want to make him too much like Anthony Mackie, so they don't want to pay any kind of like royalties for likeness. But it's like Anthony Mackie's stunt double because pretty much like the jawline, a little bit about the eyes, it's kind of Anthony Mackie-ish. So now Cap has to, once he gets his powers back, uh, he has to go out there and deal with Hawkeye and deal with the writers and and stop Falcon, all the while figuring out like they're some Hydra goons in disguise fanning the flames to hype up the rioters, and while they trying to put everything like trying to get things in order as best they could and keep people from killing each other, Tony is trying to like repurpose or try to find the frequency from the mad bomb so he can repurpose it so he can like use it to bring everybody to their senses, which you see in later panels. But uh, Bravo gets some licks in on Cap while Falcon is holding him down, but then he leaves Falcon to it to like do what he needs to do, and Falcon just in like Cain and Abel kind of situation where he's picking up this big rock and was about to smash Cap's head, and Cap is sitting there pleading to Falcon to come to his senses, like it's me, it's your buddy, it's your friend. I know you're not going to do this. I see in your eyes, and you do see him like in his mind, he's like fighting it, but thanks to the timely intervention of Iron Man, he neutralizes all the negative effects of the mad bomb. And then of course at the end you figure out that the Machine Smith, uh, got infected by that same kind of frequency that causes him now to like he can't be counted on to replicate any more uh, of his work, because now he's like losing his memory, or at least like if he's trying to think about it, it's like it's not going to come to him. Whatever plan he's coming up with is like it's completely just he's forgetting. So he pretty much affect him with a virus, and just to keep him from like being like a threat to them ever again. But I don't know if we ever seen Machine Smith in other stories, but it's like he's and I haven't, so I'm guess he's not posing like a serious threat for at least a significant time. So that arc is over. Now we on to like the new arc, Shock to the System, not to be confused with Static Shock. Uh, Now there's like a this like mystery where a lot of uh, persons of interest who are in witness protection programs set up by Shield, who used to be uh, part of like Hydra or AIM or whatever, like former super villain goon or whatever, trying to start a new life. They are they're starting to get assassinated by this guy named Scourge, and uh, Diamondback and Dum Dum Dugan is looking into this, and there's been I think one instance where I could be misremembering a bit, but I do recall a Scourge, but he was dressed differently. Obviously, this is probably in the '90s, where it's little bit more, you know, gangster 1940s kind of gangster kind of look to him with a skull face. But now it's a little more tactical with a skull face. It's hard to not misconstrue him with Crossbones, because pretty much almost look like Crossbones, but the tactical gear is like streamlined a bit. Uh, so they figure out, like, okay, somehow people getting like information about like these people who are trying to live out new lives under different names and trying to live in peace and get out of that life. But now they're being hunted down. So we got a leak in the system. So Cat figured out like it's down to at least three people. But one of them, this guy with glasses, you know, obviously like okay, he's gonna be figured out. So he decides to like try to take some pop shots at Cap. Obviously not gonna work. He jumps off the building and tries to like fly off with these like mechanical wings, but Cap nails him with his shield, takes him down like all across like this. He lands across a different building, and Cap just like just jumps and tackles him to the ground, and he takes a cyanide capsule, killing himself. Like Hell Hydra. It's like this is like getting serious. Now, if you remember Viper from the previous arc, he's in witness protection, but now, he's being looked after by Diamondback. It's like okay, all the people they're coming after people we put in like a wit sack for at least the past uh couple of years. So somebody recent. So everybody that we recently put in witness protection, we gotta look after them. And of course, Diamondback is like looking after Viper, but it's too late. He gets killed, and she gets knocked out, which causes also an explosion, which lands her into like a temporary coma. We also find out that Skarsgård was pretty much like a brainwashed agent uh, of Henry Peter Garrick. I'm pretty sure he was in like the MCU at some point because the name sounds familiar. But he's complete from what I can tell from reading this issue run from Sharon, who apparently this guy has always been like some kind of like jerk, but one of those kind of patriotic jerks. But now it seems like he's like gone off the rails a bit because I guess he doesn't like the idea because he views anybody who's the enemy of the state, where it's like Hydra, AIM, and these super villain goons. It's like all of them, like just need to be served. They need to be put down, and not be like coddled or because it's kind of like it reminds me of Batman the animated series. I think like the season 3, where this villain Lockup, who views like, okay, criminals are criminals, point blank, period. As soon as you break the law, you are locked up and you are summarily executed. Done. There's no prison or uh, like community service or WITSEC. No, like you're done. And that's how like Garrick is viewing things, and using like this new Scourge guy in order to mete out this justice, or what he views as justice. So now Cap is going after the next target, this guy who used to be like the villain Porcupine. Uh, he's being targeted now at this point. And Scourge is gonna, going after other members of like, well, before you get to Porcupine, he's going after other members of the at least the 3-person serpent society, and snaps the neck of one of them. And you find out that like this new Scourge guy is Dennis Dumphy, who's like the Demolition Man, super strong ex-wrestler, one-time friend of Captain America. And that's weird, like one-time friend. Like, how can you be anybody's one-time friend? You friend or you're not. It's like you just friend for one day kind of situation. I never heard of like Dumfrey before, but apparently he's like used to be a close friend to Cap a while back. Uh, Cap and the agents track down the final member, the Rattler. That was the third member of the little snake crew. He's trying to like leave town because like his crewmates again like just annihilated left and right. So you you also figure out that Garrick's been like completely who I guess at some point or another got kidnapped by, I guess, Hydra agents, maybe not Hydra agents, but just like bad guys in general, who manipulated his already ill feelings on how the justice system works, and so it's kind of he's perversed it, after that event. Cap beat himself up because he didn't like see like the forest through the trees when it comes to this guy. So now they gotta track Garrick down because he's responsible for this new Scourge, taking out all these WITSEC people. And while Cap is trying to get Rattler, he takes down other Hydra goons who's hiding in plain sight, trying to kill this guy just to avoid anybody talking. So Cap and the agents are using Rattler to lure out Garrick, so that way we can they can put a stop to all this. Uh, so using Rattler to lure out Garrick, they finally did. So he's just like completely like not unhinged, but just like he's like one of those extreme patriots. Because screaming out like, "I'm the hero here, I'm the hero." Uh, So at this point, it's hard for them to like pin down whether he's always been this way or it was just the result of the brainwashing. But I guess he was such like a hole. It's like hard to pin down, uh, which way to go with it. So, uh, Cap saves the former villain while dealing with Scourge, who, after Diamondback wakes up out of her coma and says like it's Dunphy, uh, and they trying to reach Cap to let him know that he's about to fight his best friend, or at least former best friend. Don't even know where they. I mean, obviously, I know where they stand now, but uh, he's got Scourge got completely brainwashed by Dunphy, completely believing like the hype of what true justice is, and Cap apparently isn't meeting out that said justice, and you know Scar's nearly like putting the screws to Cap for a minute, thanks to Sharon coming in a nick of time, shooting this guy dead. You know, but Cap doesn't like the idea of like people dying on his watch. Bad guy or not, like gotta be better than that kind of situation. But I'm glad they don't harp on that for too long, because like most stories nowadays will probably have like Cap, you know, having a grudge against Sharon for like X amount of issues, and it's like leaning hard into the melodrama of it. But honestly, it should not last for too long, considering who Sharon is. It's like so that arc ends, but like bittersweet. Now that because of Garrick, the one of the things he did was kind of like feed the media some misinformation about like this scandal, and like you know what Cap and Shield are doing with like you know uh these villains that uh making these witness protection programs for these criminals. But like Cap just feel like I don't have to go out there and feed into the media spin or BS. I'll make my statement at Dunphy's funeral, uh, where it's more appropriate, kind of thing. I'll say what I have to say at his funeral. I'm not going to say it in front of these vultures. So now it's like Cap is going under scrutiny, which feeds into the next arc. Uh, New World Orders. Now, the different art, it's kind of like giving me like whiplash a bit, because I don't know why they couldn't just stick with like, because I like the original art design they went with in the first arc of this run, but they each new arc got a different artist, and it's like, or inker or whatever, and it's like I'm not too big of a fan of these past two. It seems like they get less and less. I like them less and less as it goes on. But the first, uh, design in the first arc is, I enjoyed that better. But kept, there's like a battle ensuing. Uh, uh, in New York near Times Square, and this Ain't this the truth with like today's day and age? Whereas like everybody's like glued to their phones and nobody's paying attention on the things going around on them. Like I don't care if you got like earbuds on, but if there's an explosion, it drowns out anything you might be listening to. Uh, yeah, like literally, I heard, I seen a car crash before, and the sound it makes, like, two hunks of metal slamming into each other. It's very loud, so it drowns out, quite a bit. And it's like Cap sitting there, you know, uh, catching this kid who's like just listen is glued to his phone while explosions is going off. It's kind of like weird. There's these new group of like so villains called the Discordians. These blue people who are assumed at first were Kree, because all these like weird powers where they making missiles out of thin air and causing like geysers of fire to erupt. Uh, Cap managed to lay one out who just disintegrated very easily. And after the ensuing battle, nobody's really like saying anything or acknowledging anything around them. They're just glued right to their phones. There's a purpose to that, or at least a meaning to all that. And it's because of this Alex Jones looking dude who's like spewing fake news, propaganda about like calling Steve Rogers Captain America can't, saying like uh, what he's doing is like old fashioned. Like, don't get me wrong, I acknowledge all the times he saved, lives and everything like that, and we are eternally grateful for that. But he's a relic of the past. His ideas are bullcrap, and it's like, what is he really doing for us? Kind of like what you done for me lately, kind of attitude. You know, it's like it's that kind of media spin, and people are eating it up. And of course, it's all like a plots, organized by Queen Hydra and Zemo and Bravo, trying to you know kind of blow up America from the inside out, because it's not that dissimilar to how Zemo in the MCU did to the Avengers, knowing for well like I can't attack outside on in because you know that's how many people before me lost, because they're a team, they're in sync, and like people will rally behind them. But if I cause them to take each other out from the inside out, that is more effective, and that's exactly what they're doing in this situation. They placated to like the people's fears, causing them to blow up on each other, and also get inside their heads. Hey, Cap's not doing much for you either, which caused them to turn against Captain America. So it's like they always been on a united front behind Captain America when it's like a external threat. But if you uh, placate to their fears, all that kind of crumbles away, and they take each other out, because that's how you probably take out the United States, have them implode on themselves. And I'm not sure how I feel how they treat Zemo throughout this entire run, because like Zemo seems like Zemo's supposed to be like a serious threat on his own right. Maybe not to the same level as like Doctor Doom, but he's pretty up there as far as like villains. And they treat him like not like a henchman, but it's like the way like Bravo talks down to him, like Zemo should not really put up with that crap realistically. I'm pretty sure they probably gonna par with each other as far as like skill level, but it's like Zemo is taking a whole lot of crap from Bravo that like I honestly would not see Zemo doing at all. Uh, but he's, I guess, he's allowing it because like it helps him go to the next goal, so he'll eat it for the time being. But still, though, he wouldn't let that slide like that. So Dugan brings Cap to the Seal Helicarrier, and they discovered the uh, dead body of uh, this Alex Jones dude named Reed Braxton. And it turns out, like, who people have been seeing on TV or the media in general this whole time isn't the real Reed Braxton. Is a uh, more than likely is like an LMD, but it's like a plant trying to placate to people's fears this whole time. So the real guy's been like killed, for a while now. Not like freshly killed, but you see like gunshot wounds to the chest, and he's probably like maybe like been dead for maybe like a week or so. So now there's been, you know, in the meantime, there's been coordinated attacks against U.S. based areas, not just in Washington D.C., but there's like U.S. embassies in different countries have been like attacked by these uh, uh, Discordians, blue people. Don't know how they, because they by and large they're like just glorified robots, I think, but they're able to just somehow, maybe it got something to do with maybe the dreamscape thing they dealt with like in the earlier arc, and somehow infuse them in some kind of like sample of that power to create things out of thin air, because they robots could not just whip up missiles out of thin air unless it come directly from their body. But I don't know, that was confusing to me how like their powers work. uh so all the while Cap and other members of the Avengers are have to uh take out these different Discordians across the globe, and have to, you know, uh, spread out to take out these guys, because the havoc they're wreaking. So they spread themselves thin. And while Cap was trying to like save this lady, she's freaking out and macing Cap in the face, and like the crowd is starting to turn against Cap a little bit while he's trying to save everybody from these uh, blue robots. You still hear like that Alex Jones dude. I'm just gonna call him Alex Jones. I know his name's Braxton, but let's call him like Alex Jones. And like he's still giving like Cap shit and like feeding into people's fears about the country and where it's like not it should be kind of thing. Dugan and Sharon managed to break into this uh uh I don't know, it looks like an apartment from outside or just like this building, and they see this three LMDs talking on three different cameras, and somehow, not sure if they're Hydra, but these people in like the studio are just filming everything, like like they gotta be agents, because at least Hydra goons, because what normal person will allow, this type of rhetoric being spewing all this BS. Uh, of course, they get found out, and so they have to fight their way out. While Dugan managed to rip off the head of one of the LMDs to use for a study later on, and Falcon comes and rescues these guys. And things are getting perpetually worse with like, you know, Braxton hyping up the crowd in a frenzy now, saying all kinds of mess like you will probably hear from, because the news he's supposed to be on is called MNN instead of it's supposed to be a play on CNN, but it could easily been like any kind of news outlet, like because they're more than likely fit more of the model of Fox News than CNN, but by and large, they all kind of feed into a particular narrative depending on like which a side of the political spectrum you're on. But at a certain point, news aren't just telling facts with no bias behind it. There's like Fox tells the kind of news that the right want to hear, and things like MSN tells the news that the left would like to hear, kind of situation. And it's not like anything in the middle. And that's what they kind of placating here. Even though this comic was running during 2011, it's still the same kind of stuff almost. Like even after all these years, it's like 10 years of change after this came out, and we're still dealing with this kind of stuff with like the news media, and like how easily people are misled, and letting their fears run their actions. Falcon had this discussion with Cap about how like there's been plenty of people who's trying to break your spirit for a long time. They all failed, but you should not let this get to you, because no matter how much they're hurting for like healthcare or like or whatever that's important to them, they should not result into violence, because that's not the answer. And you see this these different panels of like these very Proud Boy looking gun nuts. You got like police in riot gear attacking civilians, people looting. So it's kind of like it's very 2020 at the whole George Floyd situation, and it's just like and like the Capitol riots and stuff like that. It's very very paint by number situation. It was like eerie when I read this, how like the parallels, it's just insane to me. But they managed to get some information from this LMD head, and all the while Diamondback is trying to like hit on Cap, and it's like he's clearly not over him, but he's like, she acknowledges that she knows full well that he and Sharon are a thing, and she's trying to get what she wants kind of situation, but she backs off thankfully. But it's just like she kicking herself because like what the heck is wrong with you, man? Damn it, Rachel, what the hell is wrong with you? So they managed to locate the Hydra base, the floating base where Zemo and the others have been sent up like as an HQ. Cap takes a team of Hydra goons to try to infiltrate this base while it's being like protected by these Discordians. And Dugan, Sharon, and some agents try to come at a different side of things while dealing with Zemo. And funny enough, there was like a funny moment where like Zemo was making a Star Wars reference. I think Sharon was making like a Star Wars reference because of his sword, and they fighting like in space, trying to stop these gigantic mad bombs that's being like dropped in the middle of New York, and it's like like half the size of a half of a building, and they're beaming this signal to go make everybody in the city go into a frenzy that doesn't have like earpieces that Tony made to like counteract that. But even still, because they're so big, like Rachel Diamondback had these things in her ear along with Falcon, who's trying to get everything like in order as much as possible to keep people from killing each other. It's going red hot in their ears that she mentions kind of like a hot rock in her ear because it's going into overdrive trying to counteract the negative effects of these gigantic mad bombs. But Sharon and Dugan take down the space station, sending these things out and taking out the mad bombs altogether. Keeping everybody from stopping the frenzy on the planet. At the same time, Steve takes on Bravo and Queen. I'm about to say Madam Hydra, but she calls herself Queen Hydra to keep herself different from like the typical leader of Hydra, which usually is either Zemo. Usually either Zemo, Red Skull, or Red Skull's daughter, or this other lady. I forgot her actual name, but the typical Madam Hydra. That if you watch my spoiler review for Kate Bishop Hawkeye comic book run last year, that has a Madam Hydra in it. So no, it's not Kate Bishop. It's Clint Barton Hawkeye. The Matt Fractions run. If you check that out, that has Madam Hydra in it. That is the typical leader of Hydra in most cases. But this is like a different because like how in Batman there's Talia al Ghul and she has a sister that runs like a different set of League of Assassins. This is kind of like the same thing, except like Madam Hydra and Queen Hydra and sisters, but Madam Hydra is the Talia al Ghul running Hydra, while Queen Hydra is like running this new modern, or at least this splinter group of Hydra goons. So Cap, in the meantime, taking down, is going toe to toe with Bravo, while Queen Hydra is trying to take a shot at Steve and try to kill him. Steve blocks it with his shield and she's firing wildly, and while trying to hit Cap, she ended up shooting Bravo. Doesn't seem like she killed him. Not 100% sure that he's dead, even though he's bleeding. He could easily have survived. But Steve took her out, sent her crashing into this, wall of monitors, and she calls her to electrocute herself. And she's ended up, ironically, in a coma, not dissimilar to Jupiter. Turnabout is fair play. So this ends up ending this whole fiasco. And, everything's, in peace now. Cap and Sharon share a kiss after having dinner with Falcon and Rachel. Rachel and Sam leave out together. And, all is well in the world kind of situation, at least for now. But, you see this little epilogue where one of the nurses for Queen Hydra is a secret Hydra agent. He's kneeling to her, basically waiting for her to wake up to, have her continue on the next misadventures of Queen Hydra. And that is Ed Brubaker's Captain America run. Beside the cons that I pointed out throughout the review with the Scordians and the kind of, I would say, plot holes, because maybe it's something I missed, but the confusion on how Bravo got out of the dreamscape, even though like there's only one way in or out, and it's with Jupiter. So they didn't have Jupiter yet, and Jupiter and Bravo was already out of the dreamscape. So how did they get him out? I was still confused on that. But I do love like the whole parallels between like what's going on current day with what's going on with uh, the Brubaker run. You know, it's like people need to read this to understand like like don't get fooled by the. I mean, of course you need to like do your own research, but the news is supposed to be like impartial and tell like the facts of the matter, no matter what side they're on personally. They tell them the facts of the matter that's being brought in, and not just to say it, just to be first to say it to get clicks or whatever. Because I know information is always constantly running and it's fast, and you gotta be on top of it, but not at the cost of spreading misinformation. Where you gotta make sure you got all the stuff correctly, so that way you don't have to retract anything or correct yourself. Slow and steady wins the race kind of situation. But yeah, I like all the parallels, and I think like the first arc, American Dreamers, is probably my favorite one. But I like the last one as well. But then again, like I like the arc with the witness protection because it'd be nice to know about those kind of things where like some people, who used to be bad guys, either want to live a normal life like the porcupine, or they want to actually do some good with their powers, like Diamondback, Rachel, because currently right now she's been a good guy for at least several years. I think the last time she was like a bad guy that I remember in history was during like the first Marvel Civil War comic book event, which eventually I want to cover. But I think no, I think it was like not that time, but it's because like she was one of the Thunderbolts, because she was like supposed to be like not Captain Marvel, but I think maybe Captain Marvel. I think maybe like supposed to be like the binary of the group. Because when I think around the time she was calling herself binary or Warbird, but she's supposed to be like the Carol Danvers of the Thunderbolts team, but she eventually like actually became a good guy sometime after that whole situation. But yeah, but I highly recommend reading this. Captain America #1, written by Ed Brubaker. So yeah, I will see you guys in a couple of weeks when I have like another comic book review. But in the meantime, I have like some Captain America movies to put out. But yeah, I will see you guys soon. Take care.